On the Drew Barrymore show, the Meg made another gaffe that we have got to discuss. Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. If you missed part 1 where we talked about her time on the Drew Barrymore show, I will link it for you. It's crazy. But there's one piece that we didn't have time to squeeze in that chat. At one point, Drew asked Meghan, what is something that you see in your kids that comes from Harry? Or that's like you automatically see that and think, oh, that's Harry coming out in the kids. And really that was kind of Drew's mistake. Right there. Because any interview with the Meg needs to be almost exclusively about the Meg. She just can't help herself. But Drew did a good job. She kept asking questions about and talking about other people throughout the interview. She asked about Harry quite a bit. She talked about Diana a fair bit. She even asked Meghan about the Suits show that she used to be on. And Drew, while she is a bit mushy and a bit touchy for a lot of viewers, she has found an audience that like her anyway and has had success with her daytime talk show. She's been successful in this space, in part because she does seem relatively genuine most of the time. Like, I do believe that this is how Drew is most of the time in real life. Like, this is kind of her temperament. But she's also been in the public eye since she was a child, so I think people understood that she needed grace during her more tumultuous years and feel a sense of familiarity with Drew because she has been in the public eye since she was a little girl. And so this talk show is something that has worked out quite well for Drew, not only because of her, but because of her strategy. With any guest, to talk about and ask the guest about things other than just themselves, like things that are related to the guest or adjacent to the guest or connected to the guest in some way. And this might in part be because Drew spent years as an actress and knows what it's like to be on these sorts of talk shows, or she has a great producer who helps her come up with good questions and a good formula. But it's consistent. When Drew has a guest, she spends at least 50% of the time volleying them questions and prompts that are not just like self-focused, which is smart. It makes you come across more likable to the audience, and it makes the conversation more interesting, because then it's not all just like, yes, this celebrity came on and just talked about themselves some more. We don't need a ton of that, and it tends to be kind of stale in these sorts of settings after a few questions. So it's good. It's a good strategy. But this obviously proved really challenging for the Meg while she was there. She really struggles to not talk about herself. She does so far too often, for far too long, and way too much. And it's often, even when the question isn't about Meghan, she ends up bringing it back to herself, just like she did when Drew asked her about Mindy Kaling. Drew basically prompted Meghan by saying, oh, I loved the episode you did with Mindy with the kids' party because it was so cute. And Mindy is such a rock star, Drew says. And Meg said that she liked Mindy, but then immediately circled it back to herself. Of like, and that's what I love about the show. What I think is so great about the show is that I get to bring on these guests that I know, and I do this and I do that, on and on and on. Instead of keeping it about the guests or just what she found interesting about the guests and the variety of guests, she could have pivoted it in any sort of different way to make it less me-focused, but of course the Meg struggles with this, we know. When Drew prompted about Harry, Meghan brought it back to herself again, and then went on this hijacked 10 minutes of rambling and didn't let Drew talk at all, and it used up all the time rambling about herself. It's poor etiquette, but it also obviously is a pretty strong sign of narcissism, because Drew said just a couple of questions, a couple of prompts, and then the whole rest of the time was Meghan rambling. Meghan used up all the airtime just rambling about herself. It was nuts. But later, Drew asked this question about Harry showing up in the kids, and instead of a trait or a mannerism or a characteristic of any kind, Meghan says, well, they still say some words with an accent. Still? I'm sorry, what? Still say some words with an accent? What is the Meg talking about? Accents and dialects are developed in early childhood. We have research that shows that they are fully formed around age 7. 6 to 8 is sort of the range typically. So we know this to be true because when you have a family who move, any of the children who are under the age of 8 develop the accent of the new residents, of the new dialect where they live now. And any of the children who are age 8 and above still retain the accent and dialect from the, first place they lived, from where they previously lived, and the dialect from where they previously lived. Your accent is developed based on the place you live and can change based on where you live up until basically early elementary school, age 7-ish. So there's no possible way that her children still have an accent besides American, obviously, because they've only ever had an American accent, because they're both under age 7. They live in the United States. Lily was born in the United States, and Archie moved to the United States as a toddler. So there's no still having an accent. That's not a thing. That is not true. Falsehoods. And being around one lonely Brit of Prince Harry is not going to influence them to have an accent. Just like someone with one relative or one teacher or one nanny that has an accent, it's not going to magically develop an accent in the children. No, they will have the accent of their zip code, okay? So she evidently, while she was spewing these falsehoods, realized that she went a step too far, and she acknowledged that they have American accents indeed, but that they still say zebra. Again, with the still. It's ridiculous. Still nothing. They say, maybe they say zebra, maybe, as like just one of those cutesy things where they're copying daddy and say zebra, but they don't really. Okay, that's not an accent. That's not saying it with an accent. That's just, mimicking your parent. They would say zebra in their normal, just not thinking about it, dialect and pattern of speech. But then she goes, oh, let's see, what else do they say like H? So many things, but zebra's a good one. I just find this incredibly hard to believe. Maybe they do have one or two words that they mimic like daddy, but that is not still having an accent. It's ridiculous. And the audacity to make such a fantastical lie on TV is exactly why people don't like the Meg. And also, what a lame answer. Poor Harold. She couldn't think of anything better to say. She couldn't think of anything at all. This is the type of stuff that makes people view her as a narcissist, as a toxic person, because it comes off as somebody who doesn't want her kids to have any traits of Harry, but only traits of herself. She surely wished that Drew would have said, what similarities do you see between you and your kids? But that would be a really lame question to ask. But I bet the Meg would have had a lot to say to that. Everything from appearance, eye color or hair color, or the way they smile or the way they walk, the way they laugh, to mannerisms like how they hold their spoon or pencils, maybe even preferences like certain hobbies or foods. So many things to say. It's just simply bizarre to say this nonsense and not pick something else. And we know that these questions were vetted beforehand, so why didn't she come up with something better? This is what I was talking about in another video, I'll link it if it's already out, about when you're doing something public facing, you need to think about the return versus the risk and possible outcomes here. And by choosing this to be her thing, that they say zebra, it is very high risk of people seeing through it and knowing that you're lying or fabricating or exaggerating, and a very low return. It's not a great one to pick. Picking something more personable, more normal, more relatable, more cute, or just legit, if they both have red hair, or they both do this funny thing with their smile, or they have Harry's eyes, just anything, so long as it's true, would have been a much better option. And so it shows that she not only didn't prepare properly, because if she was I'm going to say that they say zebra and they sometimes say things like Harry does, then come up with other words. Brainstorm. If you're really fixated on using that, don't just have one example. It's ridiculous. Does she even try? What is happening? But anyway, immediately following that horrible segment, the Meg wanted to pass out cookies to the audience that she made at home, which, let's be honest, is a weird move for a talk show to bring home-baked cookies. Is it even allowed? Sanitary concerns, that seems not allowed.
Of the love and the thoughtfulness and that beautiful, handmade, caring aspect. Everyone here is going to be able to.
And the Meg came across maybe a little overly eager, maybe a little anxious. This was a very embarrassing part of this show. In conclusion to Meghan's time with Drew, it was very cringy.
And there's more there. I mean, we made tons. We did as many as we could.
Oh, my Meghan. This is Meghan.
Hi, hey, nice to meet you. Wait, do you want to try a cookie while you're here? Okay. Here you go.
Meghan and I were.
And it appears in this moment, at first, Meghan thinks this woman is approaching the stage to bring her a gift because she says, "Oh my gosh, how sweet," and begins to reach out her hands as if she thinks she's about to receive a gift. But then she realizes what's in this woman's hands is the photo Drew mentioned earlier in the show of her presenting the gift to Diana of an ET doll, which we will talk about in an upcoming video perhaps. But if you guys want the analysis, just click the like button, leave in the comment section, and I will put out a short video going over it because it was crazy. It was weird and awkward. But this, even more bizarre.
Oh my Meghan, this is Meghan.
Hi.
Oh my Meghan, this is Meghan.
Hi.
And maybe she was a little anxious. I don't know. What happened was she seemed to panic. And Meg didn't realize that this was an employee bringing something to Drew and was like, "Here, do you want a cookie?" And there was a lot of awkward laughter. I guess she just assumed that this woman was coming for the cookies. I don't know. It was so bizarre.
Together.
Tasty?
Yum.
Okay, great. Oh, how
Love you.
sweet. Oh, that's beautiful. Nice to meet you, Meg.
Drew tried to save the moment and was like, "This is so-and-so. She works for me." I don't remember her name. Was it Bethany or something? I don't know. She doesn't ask, "Do you like it?" or "How is it?" She's like, "Good." As in, that's the only acceptable answer here. And the lady who's forced to try it in front of the audience, awkward and embarrassing. I wouldn't have. I would have just walked away or said, "No, thank you. I'm working." But she goes, "Oh, yum." Sort of yeah. It wasn't a very convincing yum. The secondhand embarrassment was far too intense for this whole appearance, but especially as it came to a close. So what did this reveal? Potential anxiety, but definitely insecurity. The Meg is one of the most insecure people we are able to witness in the public eye. Full of self-absorption and a complete lack of awareness. Nothing new, of course, but still quite the spectacle. And it can be sort of interesting when you have someone in real life like this, that you see this in others too. You're not wrong. This is weird. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!